Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, none other than Mark Smith. Mark, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm always good, actually, Doug. It's one of those irritating things. I seem to have a sunny disposition.
I can't imagine many people find that irritating, but maybe some. I always love you always are cheery and having the silver lining, which is great every time you and I talk, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think it comes from being knocked over a lot in life and figuring out there's no point in wallowing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't get you anywhere, does it?
Nope.
So, Mark, one of the things I wanted to throw on the table today for a conversation is something that, us as coaches see often is how men give away their power and how they do this through life. Is that something that you see often?
Absolutely, and it couldn't be more prevalent than right now because there are a group of men that we're working with. Obviously, we're constantly working with groups of men, and it's come up quite a number of times where the guys have said things like, I feel needy, or I feel like she's got control, those kinds of comments. So I think it's definitely relevant right now.
Yeah. And, it was funny because you mentioned that. I was talking to a guy that's in the Brotherhood. I was on in the Brotherhood for guys that are newer to this podcast. The Powerful Man's got different programs. The Brotherhood is a more advanced program. And the gentleman was talking about how he always feels like he's chasing his wife. I'm always chasing her and wanting her and going after her and wondering why he wasn't getting the response that he wants. And who wants to be around someone who's always needy, kind of pulling on your shirt the whole time, trying to get to you.
Yeah, as I was preparing mentally for this podcast, I was actually giving it some thought. There's a concept in Japan called ma space, which is the space between two people. I don't know if you've come across that. When the Japanese bow, really what they're doing is they're doing a number of things, but we'll go into that at another stage. What they're doing is contributing to the mass space, and for them, it's around trust. So if I can trust you, which is essentially what they're doing, they're putting their head forward saying, I could be chopped in the back of the neck in the bow. And so it's a trust gesture. And when we in relationships are too up against somebody, we don't give them any space, any space for trust, any space to come towards us. And therefore people get smothered. They've got no room to breathe. And I've heard women say that. I've heard guys say it a lot, in golf changing rooms and things like that. So it's not only from men to women. It can be both ways.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've experienced it with, in the dating world where you have that kind of annoying psychopath girl that you see in movies that's, following you around. You're kind of like, get away from me. There's also a thrill of the hunt, right? That we feel when we're pursuing a woman. And when we start pursuing the woman, right, consistently, and there's no chance for her, right, to come back after us or to be wanted and desired. It really kind of gives you that flip of energy.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And as you were speaking there, I was thinking, we almost need to change gears. Once we've got her, with the thrill of the hunt, we've actually managed to land that lady, that queen that we've been after. The hunt is no longer appropriate. The sort of chasing after her is no longer appropriate. She's then looking for a different guy, isn't she? She's looking for the guy who can be her rock, who can, stand there and have her emotional waves crash against him and him still stand there and show up, able to take it and to still stay centered.
Yeah, it's I like that, the rock with the waves. I always think of it as like a lighthouse, right? That's always steady. It's always there. The waves can come no matter what storm comes through. The lighthouse is always there, shining brightly and shining the way. And we look at masculine and feminine energy. Oftentimes it's talked about the feminine energy is a dancing energy. It's very flowy and it comes through all kinds of emotions. And for a lot of men, over time, they try to be so nice to the women, right? Try to, I'm going to take out the trash and do the laundry, and I'm going to do all these things to make her happy. Then I'll get laid, right? with an expectation of an outcome. Yet she doesn't have anybody else to weather her storms when she wants to get into her craziness, into all the emotions that femininity can get into. There's nothing masculine, like you said, to crash against. There's nothing for her to bump up against. And she then takes on often the masculine role.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because I was speaking to a guy. We were having a one-on-one coaching call earlier on, and it's really something that I don't think we've explored in society and been taught, that there's this energy between us, and that, you know, men have feminine and masculine energy and women have feminine and masculine energy. And what I was saying to him is that when I am, and it doesn't mean I'm obsequious is a word I like to use, you know, chasing after and trying to please and placate. It's a case of being in a situation where, yes, absolutely, I want to facilitate her growth, and I want to help her, and yet there need to be boundaries. In order for me to get what I need to get done, I need to focus. Therefore, at certain times, I'm not available for you. I've got a purpose and I've got a mission, and the mission and the purpose is to look after my kingdom and to take care of my queen. If I'm constantly running after you, helping you, and I'm thinking about myself, having done this, you know, dropped something that I'm working on. Maybe I'm building a coaching training program or whatever it happens to be, to go, my wife has suddenly said she needs another washing line, and I'll drop everything and go out and plant some poles and put up a washing line for her and feel like, you know, I'm the man. But I haven't finished what I was doing, and she loses respect for me.
Yes.
So it's about negotiation, and my wife and I have come up with a way of communicating and agreeing with each other, such that there are times when I say to her, this is mission and purpose stuff, and I need to get this done. Can that wait? What happens is she sinks into her feminine because she trusts me. She knows that I'm doing stuff to take care of her and the family. And therefore my masculine energy is intact, and she's able to trust, and she's able to sink into her feminine. And of course, there are times when, you know, when I've dropped the ball and she's taken over and taken charge, and she's quite comfortable to take charge. The secret is to not allow that to persist, because that creates what I imagine that creates in guys is a lot of consistent neediness, which is very unattractive.
Well, yeah, and there's so many things you said were great there, but one thing I want to also unpack for the guys is when you're telling your wife, my wife and I do something very similar. Hey, you know, can that wait? And she says yes. It's because she trusts you that you're actually going to do it later, right?
Yeah.
And how many times do us guys, especially, it's like, yeah, I'll get to that later, or I'll do that. I'll help you out with the car or whatever. Insert your manly tasks there, you know, and it just doesn't happen. She waits days, weeks. She hasn't forgotten about it, you know? Yeah. And so do you see that as a missing element a lot for men in this thing of they're giving up their power, of not keeping their word?
Well, funnily enough, it's the second item on my list. The first one was that wanting to please and that neediness, and the second one was not keeping your word and being accountable. If you were to get my wife in on this call now, she'd say to you that there was a specific point at which in our relationship she saw a future for us. And you probably don't know the story. We'd been together sort of 12 odd years when she asked me to marry her. I came back from a business trip, and it was because of that. It was because she'd finally seen that. And this is another thing that the guys ask me about is, you know, how much do I have to do in order to have her trust me? And my answer is, do it until it's done. Do it until you know that she knows, or do it until you get feedback. You know, it's not a case of 16 attempts to put out the trash and suddenly you're going to get laid or whatever, you know, because again, referring to your previous point, it can't be for the payment. It's not an exchange. It's a gift, and it's a gift without expectation of return is your masculine energy and your showing up in your accountability and keeping your word.
Well, I agree with you. I love the idea of it being a gift, right? Because all too often I find in couples and marriages and in relationships in general, people they stuff down little complaints, little things. And then it becomes, well, I'll do this for her when she does this for me, But when you think about it and you think about, especially guys, you're married, you think about that woman you looked into her eyes on your wedding day. You would have done anything for her in that moment of clarity and pure love. What about now? Would you do anything for her now without expectation, without you just wanting this beautiful creature, this beautiful human in front of you to live a life of pleasure, love, tranquility? It's really our own stuff that gets in the way, and commonly called horse trading, where we're like, oh, well, if you do this for me, you make dinner and you do this, then I will change the oil in your car and and do those things.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I have done a lot of work in coaching in the corporate world, and I used to say to my clients, don't behave like corporate children. And what you made me think of there is that playground stuff of if you then I, it's not appropriate in a relationship. It's also something that I've heard a lot around money. There seems to be this power balance in exchange, and well, you're not doing this, therefore, and being in competition with a woman is just wrong. Firstly, they'll win every time. Secondly, the blame game and the one-upmanship and all of that sort of stuff is completely the wrong energy for love and lovemaking, right? It's not ever going to get into that space of being connected and being passionate and being there for and with each other, no matter what. And it doesn't matter what your religious or spiritual beliefs are. When there's a marriage or a union, it's around exactly what you said. It's around, I'm committing to being with and for you in sickness, health, rich or poor, whatever it happens to be. And, I've done it both ways. I've done it the wrong way. I had a short 3-year marriage, which was a disaster and a failure. I've got 2 beautiful children from that marriage. And then I married my queen, who asked me to marry her after being together for quite a number of years. And I brought her daughter up from the age of 8, and she's my spirit daughter. And so I've been very blessed with that rich experience. And the thing for me is also around the relationship and the power game is when there are children involved, they shouldn't see a battle. They should see a collaboration. They should see a partnership.
Oh, I agree 100%. That's very beautiful and well said. Well, when you think about, Mark, the other ways men give away power, what are some of the other things that you're seeing?
Okay, so there are a couple of psychological models. The one is parent, adult, child. And I mean, yourself that we grow up with a paradigm which our parents give us, and we model ourselves based on what they show us. And, they often show us the critical parent,
Yep.
waving the finger, or the one parent sort of giving into the other. And it's like this, it's one above the other, and maybe it swaps. So you either get the critical parent or the nurturing parent. You'll get the parent who disciplines, and parents you'll hear say, I play good cop and she plays bad cop, or vice versa. And what happens is that we end up as adults being the child responder. So we either are rebellious, or we are what's the word? We're can't think of the word. Suddenly it's gone out of my head. We comply. We're compliant.
Submissive. Yeah.
Absolutely submissive. And what we need to learn is the adult type of behavior, such as one of the things that I'm really grateful for in the beginning of our relationship. My wife sat me down and she said, "What are the things that will make you stay, and what are the things that will make you go?"
Ooh.
And I listed those things and asked her the same question. We happened to be in a bath with candles and everything, so that's our boardroom. We've created a boardroom so that I'm vulnerable and can't escape. She's a very smart lady, and based on that conversation, we developed a set of agreements which are adult. And then if we're human and make a mistake and fail forward, there's the opportunity to fail forward because we have agreements and we can recreate those agreements. And my wife's words to me are, how can we move forward rather than, what have you done? So that's, again, that partnership. But the adult side is, for me, really important, that we shouldn't try and parent our partners, nor should they try and parent us, and vice versa.
Well, yeah. Well, a couple things. Do you guys ever revisit that bathroom conversation and come back to it?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Is that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. Bonnie says, come on, boardroom. And we get in the bath.
I like the boardroom. Boardroom to the bedroom. So, and when you look at that also, my wife and I do something similar. We've done many things like this. But one of the things that we are very clear on is we're two independent individuals as well that are always growing and changing. We're not the same people we met, 10 plus years ago. We've evolved individually, but our relationship itself as its own container has also evolved. I think oftentimes men, we're just not taught that. And that paradigm is really unique, and it escapes. And we think, okay, well, she's the same woman I married 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And the truth is she's not.
Yeah, how true that is. Well said. And as you were speaking, I was thinking of my wife. When I met her, she was this corporate heavy hitter. She had a business in South Africa and a business in Chicago, and she was operating and she had staff. And now she's completely changed. She's changed her hair. She's changed her lifestyle. She actually said to me, I've done enough of this, and I'm over it. And she said to me, it's over to you. And she literally handed me the reins and said, look after me, which was at the time pretty scary because I was starting out in coaching, and there were cash flow challenges occasionally and frequently. So I think it's really important to have that ability to be flexible and to work with each other to create a way forward. I mean, even my kids talk about couple goals, which wasn't a thing when we were growing up. And I've spoken to both of my kids, my biological kids, about that. And Danielle, who grew up with me, my spirit daughter, she's had that all the way along. And I think it's such an interesting thing that we grow up learning from those who teach us. And one of the perspectives that I have in terms of relationships is also that intergenerational power that we have, that I'm going to show up as a man in such a way that my son is going to learn from and treat his lady in such a way, and my daughter is going to learn from and expect nothing less from her man, and they will pass that on to their children. So that's why, for me, it's that's my mission anyway.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It's interesting. I was listening to an interview with a gentleman, and it doesn't matter, a corporate, hitter, so to speak, as you using your term, but a very successful billionaire. And he was talking about why he gets up early in the morning every day, when he's already made all his money, he's already done that. And it was just what you were talking about. It surprised me initially, then I thought back of all the men that we work with through the Powerful Man, and that's something they all get out of the Alpha Reset and what have you, is these intergenerational bonds that are created and broken. But he said, look, every morning, I don't want to get up at 4. He happened to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning a lot of times. He's like, but every time I get up, I picture myself either walking my daughter down the aisle or another man that I don't know, a stranger walking my daughter down the aisle, and I get to work. Yeah. And I thought that was such a powerful why. Talk about a motivator there. For a lot of men listening who are going through tough times in your relationships, and again, the topic being how men give away their power. Sometimes we can wallow so much in our own pity, our self-pity, that we sleep in, we cover the blankets over ourselves and go into a cave. But, really attaching something to a why as powerful as this guy did, of the visual of a stranger walking his daughter down the aisle during her wedding, or him walking his daughter down. His whole thing was he made his money, but his health was at risk. And so every morning at 4 a.m., he gets after his health. And that's priority number one. And so when we're talking about what you're mentioning, we can put this into context for relationships as well.
Yeah.
So what else are you
Yeah.
seeing, Mark, with some of the guys as they're coming through, and then how else are they giving away their pattern, the power?
Well, I think there are lots of behaviors which manifest. The secret for me is around, I mean, you brought it up, the why, and potentially, you know, the why and the power is seen as an external locus of control. It's sort of from my business, from my money, and women don't see that necessarily as power. They may in the adverts and the movies, you know, or initially in the dating game, you know, there's a hot rod and a hot guy and whatever. But power comes from within. So yeah, there is overwork. There is, you know, wallowing in self-pity. There's alcohol and drugs. There are all sorts of ways to give away power, including, you know, making mistakes and then apologizing and coming back and hoping that it'll be okay in a little while and she'll love me again. And then, you know, repeating that cycle, and it's exhausting. So, and that all comes from, I think, the external requirement to feel balance of power, and what needs to shift and change is that contract within us to say, you know, I'm the man that I want to be because I respect him. No, it's not for her, it's not for my father, it's not for anybody, and it will rub off on my children, etc. But we are not taught as men to put ourselves first. We are taught to be of service. So not to be selfish, and I believe firmly in servant leadership, and yet the priority for me has got to be that I put myself in a position where I'm strong, resourceful, calm, loving, and I've got, you know, space and capacity to share and give, and therefore, you know, be of service.
No, well said. I completely agree. And, you know, and guys, you know, listen to Mark's words, go back and rewind, well, the whole thing, but definitely that part of looking at what you're doing for yourself and how you're filling yourself up. And
Yeah.
Are you making yourself your why and the reason you do things? Mark, when we look at this, you know, let's give these guys some action steps, some things they can take away from this conversation and apply to their life, or notes they can put on. What do you have for them?
Yeah. Just prior to that, Doug, if I may,
of course.
Something that I've seen as a massive benefit from the Powerful Man, from the Brotherhood, even from the Alpha Reset, has been that male camaraderie. Is, you know, doing it alone is something I've done a lot of my life, and I'm very blessed. I've got some great friends who have been with me on a transformational journey, and since having those guys speak my language and I'm able to offload frustration or whatever with them and get some feedback, you know, have some really close buddies, or, you know, on the Powerful Man, make use of the guys around you. So that for me is a big benefit to being part of this movement. So yeah, about power tips. The first one I think we've covered already is create agreements and damn well keep them. I've driven back from the shops, and fortunately for me, it was a short distance. Damn, forgot the milk. Instead of going home and making excuses, turn around, go back and get the damn milk, because that was the agreement I made. Secondly, pardon the French, own up if you fuck up. So, you know, something that we often try and avoid, and I've heard men say, you know, I'll tell her this, or it'll be okay, or, you know, a white lie doesn't matter. Women can see straight through you, and they respect you more if you make a mistake and admit it than if you try and make excuses. With women, vulnerability is strength. So tell them what's on your heart and be willing to be vulnerable. Yeah, it's so counterintuitive. We think, you know, cowboys don't cry, be the tough guy. And yet, if you watch the movies, and I love cowboy movies, they do cry occasionally. And women see and feel your heart, and they feel connection and connected when we express. When I'm on the phone to my wife and I tell her, I'm missing my kids and I'm feeling really emotional, and tears are pouring down my cheeks. She doesn't run away and say, "You big Jessie," she says, "My sweetheart, let's get on a call with them," or whatever. She tries to take on that connection and help with it. So, are you ready for two or three more?
Let's bring it on, guys. I hope you are writing these down. Fantastic. I'm taking notes over here.
Oh yeah, sure. Doug's a past master. Take charge of stuff and do it without being asked. That's something, there's that old meme, after 6 months of nagging, whatever, she, it's something that I only got a few years ago, that getting up and clearing the gutters or getting up on a Saturday morning and deciding to paint the front wall of our house. My wife would wake up and the wall's already painted. It is so appreciated. And it's not that, oh, well, I do all of these things again, going back to what we were saying earlier, that tit for tat. It's not about that. It's about knowing and seeing that things need to get done and doing them because it's your domain.
Yes.
And it's about taking ownership of that. Then the other one, I spoke about my buddies that I've got, and it's get your emotions under control and own them. They're mine. My anger is mine. My sadness is mine. My shame, my pain, it's all mine. So I find a way of releasing it. And like I say, I've got a couple of good buddies, and I can say to them, I've got this customer who hasn't paid me, or this issue in business. I talk it through with them. I take my dog running up the mountain. I'll even have a call with somebody like yourself or Tim and say, I need some mentorship around this particular issue. Please help, so that I can release the frustration. So it's not only the stuff that we write down at the end of the day, it's a to-do list. It's also the attachment that stays in here of that frustration or that resentment of that staff member who screwed up again or whatever, or even the shame of having yelled at that staff member who didn't really deserve it, and taking that stuff which doesn't belong with your wife into your relationship is like getting into your car with a bag of trash and emptying it all over the passenger seat.
Yes.
It's just not appropriate. Last one, switch on your passion and show it. This is my favorite, and something that my wife said to me recently. She's really pleased to see me doing that again, because I seem to have stopped for a while. So she didn't say a word. And yet I felt compelled, because I'm locked down in the UK and she's locked down in South Africa, to write her poetry. And I used to do it all the time. And I used to write her these funny little things to make her laugh. And then, I'd write her something a bit longer that was a bit more romantic, or I'd send her a naughty little, hint on my way home if I'm driving home and it's 2 hours, and I'd say, get her sort of in the mood kind of thing. So whether it be surprising her with something poetic music, taking her dancing or making a picnic or whatever, is dial up the passion. It's something I've heard, and I've got a very good friend who says, I'm, to your point earlier on, I have tried these things and now I'm going to wait, and it's up to her, and it just doesn't work. The less they get it, the less they need it. Yep. The less we get it, the more we need it. So guess who's got the need, right? Yeah. Yep. So we've got to get creative, and I'll do something when I'm with my wife. She loves having a hot bath, and we don't have an electric geyser. We have a hot water donkey outside. I need to go and make a fire. So I'll go and make a fire early. And then I'll tell her bath's ready, and she'll say to me, well, I'm ready, I'm still working. And I'd say to her, yeah, sure, and the water's going to be ready for you as soon as you're finished work, so that she knows at the end of her day, she's got something to look forward to. She doesn't then have to think about cooking. And then by the time she's had a bath, I've made food, and that's just a gift for her, because she's like, thank goodness, I don't have to, work into the evening as well. And women work hard, and I think they need to be appreciated in many cases, not all.
I agree. I love these 6 tips, guys. You got to make sure you get back and write these down. I think it's really interesting, Mark, as I was listening to you. Oftentimes we talk about men giving away their power in their relationships, right? And a lot of the men that we deal with at the Powerful Man are business leaders. But most of these guys, you can apply these to the work life, right? You can apply these to business, right? Create agreements and keep them. Wow, how good would that go with your clients and with your staff? Own up as if you fuck up, right? Own up if you fuck up, excuse me, right?
Yeah.
Own your stuff, right? Extreme accountability, speak from your heart, be vulnerable. All of these things, guys, that Mark has shared are ways for you to reclaim your power, not only in your relationship with your wife, but also in your business, in your friendships, and probably the most important relationship you'll have, the relationship with yourself, right? Oftentimes, as you know, Mark, we lie to ourselves, guys, more than we lie to anybody else. I'm going to work out get up at 4 a.m. I'm going to work out, and 4 a.m. roll comes around, you hit the snooze button. There's all kinds of these things that come back. So it really is all about you, and it's up to you. And there's nothing more, in my opinion, more giving to the world than you taking care of you.
Yeah, well said, Doug. One last point on that, and it's so incredible how we're synchronized today. That self-talk, when we do hit the snooze button, that little guy who criticizes you, that shadow stick man that some guys will recognize. I have worked for many years on reprogramming that inner voice, that inner critic, to be a supporter, to be hey, job well done, or come on, you can do it, or it's all right to give yourself that off, whatever it happens to be. Let yourself off the hook occasionally. Your biggest supporter needs to be yourself, and that inner voice you can reprogram. It's perfectly possible, just with consistency. If you have affirmations or reminders, I've had an affirmation since 2001 that I wrote, that I still have programmed into my brain, that I say and remind myself. And it's really important, because, as Doug says, the guy who is the most giving is the safest guy to have around, and the best guy to have around in a family and a relationship is the one who supports and takes care of himself.
I 100% agree. Spot on. Well, Mark, thanks so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with the guys. Gentlemen, if you don't know, Mark is a coach with the Powerful Man. And if you're going through the activation method, you may be lucky enough to be able to speak with him and have him guide you through the journey. Guys, there's so much information packed in this episode that I'm really going to encourage you to listen to it at least one more time, and then take action. Take action on those 6 power tips that Mark gets you at the end. He's building a nice base through the conversation for those 6 tips, and then really make sure you're scheduling them and taking action. And then, as always, go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus and go ahead and get a free training there as well. And that way you can start really taking the power back. Mark, once again, thanks for being here, man. Always a pleasure. I always get so much out of our conversations.
Thank you, Doug. And I'm really looking forward to checking out your new spot there in Oregon. I can't wait.
The door's always open for you, my friend.
Well, thank you so much.